How many of you would say you're brand new to supported decision making? You maybe just heard the term and really don't know much about it. How many of you think, oh, I've heard enough? I'm just want to sharpen up my skills.
Don't be scared.
Almost all of you did not raise your hands for anything. So we're gonna have to pump you up a little bit more, I guess. I wasn't supposed to have to work at the session. All right. Well, my name is Jenny Newgart. I am with the Board for People with Developmental Disabilities and have the pleasure of overseeing a project that we'll tell you about in a few minutes, the Civic Project. And I'm going to have the rest of the panel introduce themselves.
So my name is Jordan Anderson. Can everybody hear me okay?
Hey, my name is William. I'm one of the people. I don't know.
You're a youth ambassador.
Yes, I'm a youth ambassador.
Okay, who's really tall and sitting very low. Oh, hi, hi, Kevin, my intern. Nice to see you. So my name is Patty Becker. I am the proud mother of two children, one of whom is William, the other one who is bringing you chairs. And also I am part of In Control Wisconsin that has been doing this lovely event. And it's so great to see what this conference looks like, considering we've been doing it since 2007. So lovely that you're all here.
Okay, welcome everybody. You're gonna have to manage papers and a microphone and a
Great.
So my slides are not turning. Is this on? Yes, there we go. All right, now we're cooking. Okay, so the project that I mentioned before, Civic, it's the Center for Youth Voice, Youth Choice. It is a 5-year national project that BPDD applied for. I think we're in our 3rd year.
Yeah, third.
Is that right?
3rd year.
And so there's been 3 phases. And you can kind of see, I tried to distinguish the states as they came in with different colors. So we were part of a group with Georgia and Vermont that started. The idea of the project was that we would have young adults or youth with disabilities being ambassadors. So they would go around, they would do like sessions like this, maybe go to transition fairs, talk to parents, teachers, professionals about their feelings about guardianship, about making their own choices, and the importance of families knowing about supported decision making, that it's a viable option. So it's really focused on the youth voice and trying to get some traction for supported decision making. So then there was a second phase that added, I believe it was 5 states, and then we just added Arizona, California, and Texas most recently. So we've got about 11 states now who are working on this project, and it's really exciting. We all get together about 4 times a year on Zoom and talk and share about what everybody's doing. Yeah, we got a question.
14 to 26.
You're right on it. Okay, so do you want to do this? I can just tell you next slide. There we go. Okay. So really the goal of this session is that you can hear from people who are using supported decision making. We're going to do a question and answer panel. That's kind of the bulk of the presentation. We have Patty to give the parent perspective, because most of you here are parents and you want to know from somebody who's doing this, you know, I'm sure you have a lot of questions, but we need to lay some groundwork so we're all on the same page about what supported decision making is. So the definition is that it is a set of strategies that help individuals with disabilities have more control over their life and the future. It involves family and friends working together with individuals to support them in making complex decisions. How many of you understood that? A couple. It's a little wordy, isn't it? So, next slide. Essentially, what that boils down to is it's the way we all make decisions in our lives. So we all make choices every day. Did you want to do that little activity?
Do a little thing. So we're gonna have a little participation. I'm gonna stand up. That's okay. Everybody, okay. So I'm interested to, as Jenny said, supported decision making is essentially how all of us make decisions, right? Humans are social people. We connect to others. We seek information. Sometimes you see that information on Facebook in your community's chat, right? Like Will and I live in Oregon, Wisconsin, and our community really likes to put options and decisions out onto the Oregon page, right? To learn and hear other people's perspectives. So there's big decisions and there's little decisions. And what Jenny and I and the guys thought we might do is ask some of you to tell us 2 decisions you've already made today. Does anyone want to volunteer? All right. I'm going to go this way and then to Ramsey. So can you tell us 1 decision you made already today?
I made the decision to share my planned itinerary for the day with all the staff members that came with me and brought me here.
Right. And did you make that decision to share it all by yourself, or how did you come to decide to do that?
It was all by myself because they've had a hard time corralling other individuals and I wanted to make their lives easier.
So there was some things happening that you might have heard from them that made you encouraged you to maybe give them that information. That's great. Ramsey, how about you?
I decided to come to this session today because although I'm 43 years old now, we all sometimes need help with our decisions. So like I'm my own guardian right now, but I'm looking for options because if something happens to my wonderful mom and dad, I can make the decision myself, but I might need a little help with that, and it takes it on me to do that. So I'm wondering if supportive decision making might be helpful for me.
That's great. So Ramsey's saying that you might be older than 26, but you also in the future, right? So for now, you don't have a guardian. You've been making your own decisions with information from others. Supported decision making helps you have a method to do that others will recognize as help. I guess is a way, right? And you decided to come to this session today. Did you decide that all by yourself, or did you talk to people about what might be good?
I decided to do it myself because currently I don't have any supportive decision making documents, and I was hoping to obtain those.
Good to know. So there were some, but to the point, I'm just going to elaborate about the decision for the session, right? I was standing outside by the In Control and Community Living Alliance table, and there were people coming to me going, which one of these should I go to, right? And how many of you in the last 2 days have opened your program and said to the person standing next to you, which one should we go to? That is a supported decision moment. It's not what some might say is those big legal moments, but that is the moment, that is a supported decision, right? So The people looking for the good daycare on the Oregon Facebook page are looking for a supported decision. The people who are saying things that aren't so nice about daycares are putting in their opinions, right? So that's that. We just want to kind of give you that moment. Everybody's making decisions all the time. We use the word independent a lot when we talk about helping people with disabilities live their lives, but none of us are really independent, right? We are all interdependent. I think heard Marcy Bro say we are all entangled the other day, which I thought was a great word. All of us in human nature are entangled with other people. Thanks for playing.
That actually reminds me, Jonathan Martinez is basically like the founding father of supported decision making. He's like the guru. And I remember, oh my gosh, I don't know, maybe 8 years ago, he did a session for group teachers that I was working with, and he described it in a way that really clicked. And I use it all the time now, and people are like, oh, I get it. So if you think about if something goes wrong with your car, who are you going to talk to about that? You're probably going to go to a mechanic. I'm not going to talk to my mom who knows nothing about cars. Personally, I'm going to go to my brother-in-law because he knows everything about cars and he can fix them. I'll take it to the mechanic, but I'll say, hey, Wayne, does this look like a good estimate? Or do you think I'm getting ripped off? Or, like somebody I trust. If I need help with something financial, I'm going to go to my sister because she's works at a bank and she just gets finances in a way I never will. So we all have those different people that we go to. We do that every day, just like you said with the conference program. It's any of those kinds of things is supported decision making. It's not just for people with disabilities. We all do that. So hopefully some of those more concrete examples will help you and realize that it's really not a complicated, difficult thing. So can you do the next one? Is that right? Okay, so what does the supported decision-making law do? So this is a law. It is a legal option. So I want to make that clear to everybody because I still think there's some just misunderstanding about that. It is a legal option that lets a person with a disability get help making decisions in the areas of life that they need help without taking away any of their rights, like the right to marry or sign a lease or vote or hunt. You don't have to take away those rights to get help making certain decisions. The person's always in control of their own decisions, and they use a supported decision-making agreement. We're going to talk about what that is. And we have toolkits here that actually have the agreements in it. It allows a person to identify a supporter or, whoever it is that they want to go to, somebody they trust to help them make decisions. And that person, the supporter, really is about helping them find information about whatever the decision is they're trying to figure out, make that information understandable. So it might involve like internet research, and that can sometimes be hard to sift through and figure out what it all means. So the supporter can help the person do that in a way that they understand. And then if needed, the supporter can help the person tell others about the decision that they ultimately made. So you can use it with teachers, doctors, the bank, other professionals. We'll get into that in more detail later as well. So why should we rethink guardianship? The biggest thing that we've noticed is that guardianship doesn't do what people think it will do. There's a lot of I think misunderstanding about that too, that if I have this legal piece of paper that says I'm the guardian of this person, then XYZ won't happen. And that's simply not true. It's a signed piece of paper. Things can still happen to that person that doesn't give you full control over their life. So that's important for people to understand. And you avoid the public declaration of incompetency, meaning if you take guardianship of somebody, you do go to court in front of a judge, and that judge is declaring that person incompetent. That can be hard for somebody with a disability to have to sit there and be told that they're incompetent or not capable of handling their own life. And I don't think we appreciate that enough when we do guardianship, what that does to a person psychologically. It gives people dignity and freedom of choice to use supported decision making. When you have guardianship, people will deal with the guardian and not the person. So again, that person isn't having a say. Even if you have guardianship of somebody, you can still allow that person to make decisions. You can still use principles of supported decision making. There's a lot of time and expenses to getting a guardianship. Some people have said they've gotten it for free, but a lot of times you're paying a lawyer. It's the time it takes to go see the lawyer, go through the documents, go to court. It can be an intense experience. The biggest thing that people don't realize is that the court does not always honor your wishes. So there is such a thing where you can have a limited guardianship and you can say, I want my child to still be able to vote. I want them to be able to marry. I want them to have a hunting license. I don't want them to be able to sign a lease. And, but the court doesn't have to honor that. A lot of judges are like, I'm all or nothing. It's either full guardianship or none. So, and you don't know, unless you've done some deep homework on the judge, you're not going to know, is this a judge that's going to allow my child to keep those rights? Some judges are like, yep, fine, rubber stamp it, but it's kind of like Russian roulette. You don't know. It's very difficult to change your end of guardianship. So I hear a lot of parents talk about, I'm just going to do it for now when they're 18. Everybody, I think if you look back at your 18-year-old self would be like, yeah, I didn't really make some good decisions. People with disabilities aren't any different. We all grow and learn. But sometimes parents think, just let's see how it goes. I don't want to take any chances. We can change it later. It's really hard for a judge to go back later and say, yeah, we made a mistake. They essentially is how they're looking at it. We can end the guardianship. That's very hard. I think we all remember the Britney Spears stuff in the news and how many years she had a guardian and how hard it was for her to get out of it with all of her resources. So think about, the average person trying to end a guardianship. Attorneys and guardians at LIDEM don't have a lot of training. They don't know the ins and outs. They don't know about supported decision making. So it's hard to get good advice from them about what would work for you. They pretty much know the guardianship process. And there's no guardianship police. And nobody is going to show up. So if your child did sign a lease or do something like that, there's no guarantee that you're just going to present your piece of paper that says I'm the guardian. They shouldn't have done that. And everything's just going to be undone. It doesn't work that way. And there is actually evidence that the people with disabilities are not any safer having a guardian than not. Anybody want to add anything to that?
And it's not,
All right.
it's not, it's not always people with disabilities. It's elderly people that use supported decision making. Cause I know people that use people like if they're in a surgery, for instance, and they can't make their decisions, they assign a decision maker for that purpose, and then they move on. And if they regain consciousness, they can be back to making their decisions. It's just for that one instance. If you need a life-saving decision, you better have a supporter that knows your wishes.
Thanks, Jordan. I think just one thing to add. So Jenny mentioned that this is a law in Wisconsin. It's a law that was established in 2017, right? So it's 6 years old. So there are a lot of parts of our system that don't know about it. There's a lot of people that don't know about it. And I think it's also important just to recognize like this is the way we talk about things in our world, right? The Department of Public Instruction has a rule to send you a letter before your kid turns 18 to tell you to get guardianship, right? There's a box to check on an IEP that says, do you have guardianship? So we've set up systems to make it seem like that's the path, right? And I have a tendency to be super curious about where stuff comes from. And I'm currently on this quest to figure out why we have guardianship in America, right? And if you think about the fact that women couldn't get bank accounts till 1973, right? Some ways those guardianship rules we have now, I think this is just an assumption. I'm going to find out by next year is the plan. But I think we think about rights of women, rights of people with disabilities, rights of people of color in our country, and how laws have changed, and we hope laws have changed. But if you go way back, right, to the story of institutionalizing women, you wanted a guardian so that the state didn't do something to your person, right? In some ways, I think that's the space. So it seems as if the systems may have not caught up to where we are now with the rights and things that are also available. And I think that's what Jordan, what you're saying is there's power of attorney, there's power of healthcare. When you go to the hospital now and you're going to have a surgery, they make you fill out something before, right? That's a form of supported decision making, is that form that you're getting from the hospital. The supported decision making forms that we'll talk about in these agreements are ones particular to the law that was passed in 2017. And that law says if you show up at the doctor with a supported decision making agreement, the doctor has to listen to your supporter. Okay. In 2015, if you showed up with a piece of paper that said, my mom's my supporter, the doctor could say, don't care, you need to go get a guardian. Okay, so that's why we need to rethink it, because there's other options. And all the other stuff that comes with it in my own social justice brain, but I won't, that's next year. Thank you for letting me go on.
All right, next one. All right, Jordan.
What keeps communities safe? Caring involves friends and family, communities, support networks, opportunities to practice a life skill, supported decision-making skills.
All right, you want to say anything?
It's always good to make your own decisions, but if you need help making your own decisions, I know that there's some people in the audience that might be older than the supported decision-making law, but I have friends that are under guardianship that can't reverse it, but it's always good to if you can have the resources to try to communicate out to the people and make people aware of the opportunities that are out there.
Mhm. And I think, what we said on the previous slide, that, a piece of paper that's saying you're a guardian over somebody does not actually keep them safer. What does, though, is having family and friends who are involved, who are paying attention, and care about you, having connections in the community. We see a lot, like people who live in group homes have very small worlds, and people don't know them. They don't go out in the community very much. So what we know from data is that people who are more connected to their communities are actually safer. If you go to the grocery store every Tuesday and get to know the cashier, and then one day you don't show up, you've got people that are like, hey, what happened to Jordan? Or, there's people looking out for you. And I think sometimes parents or guardians are a little scared, like that the world is big and scary, but it's often the people closest to you, like who maybe work in group homes, that are more likely to take advantage of you than community members. So, and then we talked about, when you're 18 and you don't make good decisions. It takes practice, it takes maturity. So those opportunities to practice making decisions are very important. And that can start from a very young age. From, do you want to wear this outfit or this outfit? Do you want to eat this or that? And what do you want for dinner? Like, I mean, those start at a very young age. And then, you know, the decisions that you're making can get bigger and more important.
I'll say something. I just wanted to add, a decision that I made like a couple of days ago, I might change because I went through the decision, but you can't make decisions without making mistakes. So you gotta make mistakes to learn to make the right decision.
Well, and that's a really good point, is you can change your mind. You can learn more about something and change your mind. That's okay. All right. Oh, next one. Oh,
Making choices is important. Like I make choices every single day, as long with everybody that's in this room probably. Like I decide what I want to wear, what I want to eat on a specific day. And me working a 40-hour week at my job, I have to tell my job coach what I want to do, what I want to have her do, because she's only there for a certain amount of time. So I have to value her time and also just make my decisions what's best for me. So having choices is a good network, and everybody can read what's on the slide, but that's what I basically wanted to cover in this PowerPoint.
yeah. And the last one is choosing to do something means taking responsibility for your actions. So I don't know if either of you have an example of that, but you know, making decisions is great, but it also means if you did maybe not make the best decision, you have to deal with those consequences and take responsibility for that. So
I can
we all deal with that.
yeah, I can offer some feedback. I don't know if all you guys are over the age of 18, but I really like making my voice heard at the voting box. So I have to live with the choices and things and the people who I want to represent me until the next time I go to the voting box. So you gotta do your research of every choices you make and choose which ones are best to represent you.
So Will and I are gonna, thanks Jordan. Will and I are gonna talk a little bit about supported decision-making agreements, okay? So we have the toolkit up here and we have these for you to take from here. And I know there's some at the BPDD table. There's never a shortage of toolkits available in Wisconsin. That is the plan. So there is an agreement that gets made. And William, do you want to talk about a little bit about how you set those up? Let's talk. So the agreement can be used for any decision somebody needs help with, right? And again, that agreement is the document you have to show up and say, these people can help me, so that somebody can't question, right? And they're flexible and they're easy to update if you want to change who your folks are. I'm going to flip to the next slide. It'll get us to yeah. So what they don't do, and I'll run through these and then we can talk about who your peeps. Okay, thanks. So what supported decision-making agreements do not do is they don't restrict the person's right to make any decisions. Okay. The person is still in charge, right? And that's why, you know, like Jordan said, supported decision-making, this project is attached to folks who have developmental disabilities because it's from the board. But this is something the Greater Wisconsin Area Agency Resource Center promotes, ARC promotes. Supported decision-making agreements can be made with anybody. Go ahead. Yeah. I'm going to bring you a mic so that the people in the World Wide Web can hear you. There you go.
So I understand that supporters are going to help them make decisions, but in Wisconsin, wouldn't the supporters still need a release of information? say the person's on the IRIS program or family care.
Yep.
That doesn't give a case manager or consultant the right just to talk to the supporter without a release.
Correct. So if you're the guardian for someone who's using family care, IRIS, or school or anything, and the school has a copy of that, or the IRIS or the program has a copy of that, or your doctor, they will talk to you directly as the guardian. In the supported decision-making agreement would need to be given to an IRIS consultant agency or an MCO or anyone else in order for that release to be right, for them to realize that they can speak. Does that, so it's by a particular organization said you still needed a release?
If the organization is one of the people you set up as your person, do you need a release? That's what you're asking.
I think so.
Who's is your supported person? Do you need a release?
Inclusive would be unlikely to be your supported person because they're a paid person, right? So think about in the land of the inclusive, we're going to use them, which no, there's no bias here. I'm just using them because we've said they're in ABC MCO. And you don't, if you are a guardian or you're a person without guardianship, no release, right? Don't need a form, but you do need to provide documentation of the guardianship, the power of attorney, power of healthcare to the entity, and then you should not need a release. If someone's asking you to sign the release, then we can talk later. I'm not sure. We are going to talk this out because I don't know who's. That's it. That is a different interpretation, I think, than Jenny and I or anyone who was at the bill signing thought was going to come of it. So it seems like we might want to talk that through. And then these are the moments that this conference is awesome because we can figure out why that's happening. I can tell you in our situation, just to use William and I as an example. If we found recent, you want to tell the dentist story? It's a good one. Don't want to tell the dentist story? No. Do you want me to tell the dentist story? See, this is supported decision making. You just watched it happen. It's real time. So William had an appointment. He is over 18. I go with him to the appointment. We are going back to the room where they're going to do the exam, and I'm with him because he's asked, that's what he wanted, right? Mom, I want you to be in the room with me. It helps me to understand what people are saying. They talk fast, they have masks on, right? All the reasons. We all provide support to people every day. And I say, sure. We walk down the hall and the dental hygienist looks right at me and says, there's a bench for you right here, right out in the hallway. And I said, oh yeah, no. And William looked at her and said, she's coming in the room and I want her in the room. No one asked for agreement. No one asked anything after that point. And I think that's the thing, but we had it if we needed it, is what I'm going to say, right? We bring it to the dentist office and say, here it is, so that they know they can call me. But that is an example, I think, of where it's there. I was the supporter, right? I'm going to be there during this time while you're talking and making a decision. You're not just going to tell us. And then it empowers William, because he was in this project, to say to those folks who have power in that moment, no, that's not what we're going to do. Right. She's going to come in here. Yeah. Okay. We're going to move to the next slide. Sure.
So I have two supported decision makers. Does the law restrict them from also being able to be my power of attorney, or can they be both legally? Be both.
They can be both. Your supported decision the supported decision agreements are about whatever that decision is you've listed on that agreement, right? So if you have a power, and that power of attorney is just an extra. I will say that it's a backup in some ways. Like, we are in the learning stages, right, of supported decision making, which is kind of an uncomfortable place for a mom to be. Just gonna admit it. So, and for William, because we're finding where are the boundaries, right? Power of attorney for finance is something we probably need to do at some point, right? But we're figuring that out. So it's an addition to your supported decision-making agreement.
And you just brought up a point that I don't think we addressed is that it's not a blanket document, like the supported decision-making agreement is about certain decisions. So you might want help with finances, but you're perfectly fine dealing with your own health issues or vice versa. So it's not just, this is my supporter's going to help me with whatever comes up. It's going to be on certain decisions.
Question.
And it's also a legal notarized document. So you can change it easily. You'll have to go and get it notarized again. But you know, you just go down to a bank, get it notarized. So
There's someone.
is that on Zoom? Is that?
From Zoom, I think.
Okay.
So Tricia, while we're getting the question queued up, Tricia's going to hand out the toolkit. There's an example of the form in the back of it, which I think is helpful to see sometimes when we're talking about it. And I like visuals. Do we have the question from the Zoom? Maybe. Hello? I don't know how to. Do you have a question on the Zoom chat? That'd be. No? Question in the room? Is it Ramsey? Am I hearing things?
That might be somebody on Zoom from Milwaukee. I think I know who it is. Cause I heard them talking. I think it might be Lawrence.
Thanks, Ramsey. I think we do have a question on the Zoom. They would like to know how to get a toolkit. Jenny, coming your way. Because I know the answer.
The toolkits can be downloaded from our website, or we can mail you one if you request one. It's you can either Google Board for People with Developmental Disabilities, or it's wi-bpdd.org. We sponsor this conference, so if you're on the conference website, I'm sure you'll find links. And if you go to our this session, there should be links to the toolkit from there as well.
So, yeah. Ramsey, I'm getting my steps in for you today.
I'm sorry. Good. Can you give me the phone and I will I will send that person on Zoom one because I know who he is.
Yes, we can get the links to you for that. So I'm just going to take us to the next slide, which is about supporters. So a supporter is any person you trust in your life who you would like to have involved in the decisions you make. And you can have more than one supporter for the same topic, right? So William, as an example, you have two people that are on your agreements. And who are they?
My supporters are Bill and Jeff. Those are my uncles, my sister, my mother, and all my family members basically. So I have,
What do those people do for you?
they help me with, yeah.
Thank you. Great.
It helps me with making ideas and helping with understanding how it goes. And I mean, it also helps me because it's not really easy to do because I can make the decisions, but sometimes I like to get help from others. But it's really just something that I really just talk to other people about so then I understand.
Thank you. Yeah. So there are that you need to help find those people right? And we'll talk more about that a little bit. I think we're to Jenny's back.
Okay. All right, this is a really great visual that I think is helpful for people too, that show from the left, the least limiting of all the options, all the way. Oh. All the way to guardianship that takes away the rights. So you can start with a simple release of information. So if you're in school and you've turned 18, the student can just sign a release form to have their parents still involved in the IEPs, or to talk to the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, or so if that, it can be as simple as just signing a release form so the parents are still involved in the conversations. The next level up would be the supported decision-making agreements, because again, it's a legal document. So it's a little extra step there. Rep payees. So a lot of people with disabilities who get like Social Security benefits will sometimes name someone to be a rep payee to help them manage those funds. So essentially they have access to the account. I've seen it at the conferences. I have a vendor table, and I've seen people like, you know, can I have $100 from the money I withdrew? And then I made a little receipt for them so that they could keep track of it. So they know they're not good with keeping track of their money. So they have the rep payee, which is pretty easy to name through Social Security. And then you go up to power of attorney for finances or medical. Again, that's not a disability thing, that's an anybody thing. We all should have one of those on file, no matter what age you are. I just did one with my mom because she went in for hip surgery. I had surgery like 5 years ago, and somebody from the hospital came over and helped me fill out mine. So it's best not to wait till you're in a medical emergency to have that. I would encourage you, I mean, most of us aren't going to do it, but I would encourage you to think about having that. So if you were like medically incapacitated, if you were in an accident or something and you could not speak up for yourself, you need to think about what's going to happen. Who are you comfortable with making those decisions for you if you can't do it yourself? And then all the way up to the limited, where maybe hopefully you can keep some rights, or all of the rights are taken. So it is a spectrum. You can do several things. You can have release forms, supported decision making, a rep payee, and a power of attorney. You could have all of those things working together. So they're really not fighting each other. They all, depending on what the person's needs are, can work together. Any questions about that? Okay. So I think we get to move on to the panel now. So you will get to hear some stories and actual, so how you actually implement this in real life. So we're just going to take a second. We do have a presenter who's on Zoom, so we're going to pull him up. Yes. I gotta,
You got a thing?
okay. So
Okay. We need to set up a little extra. Ready?
Hi.
Hi. We're gonna answer a question online real quick too.
Okay.
Okay, so the question is, what form do you need to present in to a medical facility to be at an appointment with a person? And it sounds like they're trying to use the supported decision-making agreement, but that facility is saying, or that doctor is saying, they want something in addition to it. Am I hearing the question the right way? So that I would say is another issue with the interpretation of the supported decision-making law, where the doctor's office is saying this isn't enough. Because in that space, that doctor's making a decision about that person's competency, which isn't always their job. Only a judge can decide your competency. So I think in those situations, I think, again, this is a new law, right? Really relatively new. It's a kindergartner, if you think about it in the terms of American school. Those are situations where I would encourage that person to call Disability Rights Wisconsin and present that information, because it is a space where the rights of the person with the disability with respect to that supported decision-making law are getting confused, I would say. And I get to say, because you invited me to talk out loud.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you're right. We are definitely still educating people on what this is. You might have to show them the law that, yes, this is a law. It is a legal document that you have to accept. And I have heard those stories where, you've gotten pushback from the bank or the doctor. And that is because it's new, and there's still a ton of people who haven't even heard the word supported decision making. So,
We have a question, Dan? Okay. I like the t-shirt, by the way. Does everyone know about the Wisconsin Caregiver Careers Training that's available? It's important.
And I'm just going from my background, but I think clinicians can be confused about it, because a guardian has to make decisions that are in your best interest, where powers of attorney document or supportive decision making would be what you want, and those always aren't the same thing.
I think this space also, just gonna say, like, our systems and our institutions, right? Hospitals, clinics, all the things, doctors, schools, aren't always at the same place in the disability rights movement of some self-advocates in space, and folks that are right, that are happening, right? You're here, you're educating yourself. Not every doctor is here educating themselves about what the sort of civil rights space is for people with disabilities. And again, that's based on history in America and that social justice thing we're going to do next year.
that Patty's gonna do next year. All right, so we're gonna switch over to our panel now. Do we have Junior? Is there a way to make Junior spotlight him? So
Is there a way?
I think you just, if you spotlight him, he'll be like equal. And you haven't met Junior yet. There he is. All right. So Junior, we're going to start out with the first question, and I'm going to have you go first because the other panel members got to do a brief introduction. So tell us about yourself and why you use supported decision-making.
Well, let me introduce myself. My name is Junior Sotelo, and I'm from West Dallas, Wisconsin, and I'm a freshman at UW-Milwaukee. My major is journalism. When I graduate, I hope to become a sports broadcaster. Something I like to do is to go to sporting events and watch sports on TV. I use supported decision making because I want to learn how to make my own decisions instead of my parents doing it for me. With this agreement, I will have the opportunity to keep practicing making my own decisions with support of my parents, and it will help me in the future to be more independent and responsible.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. You don't want to go next, Will?
Well, it's sort of. Tell about yourself and why you like to use this method versus guardianship.
Well, I just,
Yeah, so why do you like the supported decision making?
because I can make my own decisions without someone else having to help me. And I mean,
So can you share, like, there are other, when you were in high school, we talked about it, right? So talk about that. You have a YouTube video that what do you talk about in that YouTube video?
I talk about some stuff about the decisions I make and
You like what?
when people treat me disrespect
Yeah.
with disrespect and all like rude and stuff like that and not nice to me. So in that video I like talked about all that stuff and kind of just like told them about the stuff I do,
Yeah.
all about who I am and
And I think,
Do you want to tell them a little bit about like work, go to school?
Oh, yeah.
and about yourself?
Well, I work at a store in Oregon, Wisconsin. It's Hy-Vee. I work there as like what is it? Like a stocker. I stock and do stuff with shelves. And
all this stuff is.
yeah,
Stalker.
no.
Not a stalker,
Not
just a
a
stalker.
stalker.
Some people giggle. You have a question in the back, ma'am? They can't hear you.
Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead. So where do you work? Say it again.
I work at Hy-Vee. It's a grocery store. I do stocking, like stocking stuff and facing all the aisles. And then what else I do is mainly play basketball and just I did graduate in 2022, so I don't go to school no more. And life is just a dream. As they say it, right? It's just a dream.
Done.
All right, Jordan.
No, that these are hard acts to follow, but so I use supported decision making. I have a power of attorney for healthcare and finances. So my supporters are my parents, and even though they're not listed, I have a very strong community, like our PowerPoint said. So if I have any questions or concerns with anything, I have my network that I can bounce ideas off of and things like that. I work at the Marshfield Clinic as a receptionist 40 hours a week. I retained my guardianship at this very same conference. I attended the same session a number of years ago, like 3 or 4, and a day later, I actually had to go to court, and my rights flashed before my eyes, because it was a really at the last minute. I knew my parents had to go to court, and I told them I learned a lot about the session, and they took my feedback, and they didn't realize it was to go to court to retain my rights, because we had a guardian ad litem come to my house and ask me questions like, what was the date, what's the month, and I answered all those correctly from what I could tell. And then they went back to the court to say I was incompetent. And as people were saying earlier, it's a hard thing to hear, that you might lose your right to vote and your right to hunt, because those are very important to me as somebody who's a policy maker and wants to do things for the better. I'm just happy this conference came in front of me at the time it did.
Yeah, like he's our poster boy. So, I mean, come on. He went to a session the very next day. He was gonna have the guardianship hearing, and lucky for you, your parents listened and turn it around. We do have a question in the back. Had her hand up for a long time.
Thank you for waiting.
I had a question about the young man that said that worked at Hy-Vee. Is that the area that you wanted, or is that were there other options made available for you?
Great question. And as his mom, I'm trying not to answer it as I walk back to the front of the room. Talk about this, like how you made your decision about where to work.
Yeah, that was actually gonna be something that I was gonna say. Well, I made that decision on my own. I thought it was I worked at another place. It was a golf course over in Oregon. I liked it there, and then it was seasonal, so I would have to pick a different job. So at that time, I was like, here, I should find another place to work. So I decided to look for a job, and then I saw that Hy-Vee was opening, and I decided to work there. So it was kind of like the decision I made to do on my own. So I kind of picked it out.
How did, no, so I'm gonna ask questions before. Did you go to the Hy-Vee hiring information session by yourself? Who went with you?
Another person from I don't Dylan, his name's Dylan. Someone from a job coach, and he went there with me, and then I had like a meeting to talk to them about it, and then I got the job, and it wasn't so easy, but at first, and then it started getting easier when I got into the job more days.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Oh, got another question here.
So your question is, were there other jobs that he might have chosen? Got it.
Oh.
Did you, so the question, like, did you want to do a different job there? Could you have applied for a different job, or how did you choose stocking?
They didn't, the thing was, is I didn't have as many different things that I could do. So they asked me, oh, we have this one open, because they were just stocked on people. So I just decided to say, oh, let's do this one. So, I didn't pick it, but they asked me, and I was like, okay, I'll try it out. And if I didn't like it, I would have told them, and then they would have changed it.
Great, yeah. Go Hy-Vee.
My question is, have any of you had experience or know of anyone have experience to give us advice on anyone we happen to be teachers, but I know there's other parents or caregivers out there who might be able to, what if you don't have that home system to choose your parents as your support caregivers on who other options, or maybe don't have aunts and uncles or parents or those close people you were referencing? What are the other options that we might choose from?
Can I answer that quickly?
Of course you can.
I'll just say, because I have people, and not necessarily in my home community, but I know a lot of people throughout the state of Wisconsin now through my advocacy work that have like their former teacher, like they might go to them for something else, and then they might have like their, let's say, neighbor do something. I know everybody doesn't have the same support network that we all have, but everybody's able. I ask anybody who is able to, if I have a question, I say, hey, do you know what I should do about this? They might not be my listed supporter, but I feel comfortable and talking. Like, for instance, I work at a patient care setting, so one day I might hear a patient in the waiting room talk about this issue, and I pretend I don't listen to that, but I might come up to them later on and say, can you explain this issue to me a little bit more?
So it sounds like you have to be very comfortable with
Yes.
your ability
Yes. Yes.
The other thing, I think we talk about this a little bit later, but it's that importance of helping. There's a session happening right now, right? Building social capital. Who do you know who knows someone, right? And I bet that's the space of helping people get connected. And when there aren't connections, to your point, that's when the system can sometimes step in and help to make that happen for folks. But I'm just going to touch on a little what Jenny was talking about is we create services and support sometimes that isolate people from creating those relationships. And we do that throughout their lives, right? William, yeah, I'm gonna talk about you in front of you. William used birth to 3 services. He was in an early education, like he was in our school district from the time he was 3 years old till the time he said, I'm done at 18, give me the diploma. But what we did through that time was really try to find who were the people. So we talk about the uncles, but there are other folks our neighbor, right? William, and talk about who's Dar.
Oh, Dar's. Dar's one of the ladies that lives like a few blocks kind of by us. Yes, one day she came over and she asked me to, because she just doesn't, her legs are starting to hurt. So anytime she texts me, she lets me know that I can mow her lawn. And so I mow it for her, and then I have to do it correctly because I don't hate that, but
But when you're with Dar, do you guys ever talk about stuff?
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
like stuff about that.
so I like basically just I talk to her about stuff and ask her a bunch of questions, and sometimes she asks me questions, and I let her know, and then I mean it's honest, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I think, to your point, it was a matter of us, making sure that we knew who the neighbors were, right? Or people in our community that we knew where were ordinary places William was going to go, right? We benefited from me meeting Kathy Snow when William was about 9 or 10 years old. So it became a moment of, he needs physical therapy. You need to do some things. We're going to go to karate, and we're going to do that at Karate America. And we're not going to do that at a clinic that's over there where it's only kids with disabilities. So it is not uncommon for all of us to walk down, people know who William is. And you will ask them questions. And I think that was the space of building that groundwork when you can. Do you have a question? Sure.
Focusing on not what you know, but who you know, all about networking.
It is. And we all do it, right? It's but it's not easy. And I come for this, like, our experience is a place of privilege in a lot of ways, right? It's easy for me to go to my neighbor and say, hey, how's it going? That's not the same case. And we recognize that, but got to try best you can. And then also in those cases where that's not the space for everybody, how do we as people who might be able to help make that happen, create worlds where it can? All right.
Great. Let's give Junior a chance to talk here. Okay, so we have talked a lot about making decisions and how important that is to practice, preferably from a young age. So Junior, how do you go about making decisions?
Okay, but before making any decisions, I think first, and if I need help with my parents, I ask them to clarify or rephrase the instructions so I can have a better understanding. For example, in the past, when I was younger, my parents used to pick out my own clothes what I'm going to be wearing for the next day. But now that I'm older, I get to shop and select my own clothes based on what I really like. Another example is that I get to keep track of all of my assignments when they are due in my calendar, that is in my time tree app on my phone. I know when I can do it by myself and when I want their input. My parents will respect me when I'm making my own decisions.
Wonderful. All right, Jordan, how about you? How do you make decisions?
So I kind of already reiterated this, but I'll put it in this question terms. So I make decisions by a variety of people, but my parents are the go-to people because I live with my parents and my other two siblings. So if my parents don't know the answer, I have a pretty wide ranging of people that I can count on with other advocacy opportunities. My friend Ramsey in the back has helped me get people and helped me with my wheelchair situation about a year and a half. He was a great resource as somebody that was in a wheelchair. I reached out to him with a lot of different questions. So just somebody in the room I can count on, and I can count on all of you because who knows if I will see you down the road or I might never see you again, but I know I can count on you to provide input and feedback.
I think we're on the next slide. How you make decisions. Yeah, that's, we jumped ahead. We did. We talked a little bit, but you talked about the where to work decision. Yeah.
So
Maybe let's move forward because we'll get to the other.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we're at 30.
Okay.
To the panel, have you been denied a supporter at any appointment? If so, what has worked for you in your situation?
So the question is if we've ever been,
Later on.
I think it is, maybe. So the question is if you've ever had somebody deny the use of your agreement at an appointment. Have you had this happen, Jordan?
Well, I can just offer a feedback to this.
Go ahead.
So since I work at the Marshfield Clinic, before I didn't work at the Marshfield Clinic when I didn't have a name tag. I always have to wear a name tag to work every day. I don't know if any of you guys do, but certain doctors see me, so they are willingness to come up and talk to me because they know I'm an employee there. I know it might be different for somebody else that has a disability and that are not an employee at my job, but I just am grateful that I have a voice and I can build those relationships with those different doctors that I can relate to. As somebody who has had surgery this past year, I built a good relationship with my orthopedic doctor, and a couple months ago, like a couple weeks ago, he stopped me in the hallway and he wanted to get a selfie with me because he saw me working and he was just amazed how I came along and stuff like that. So I hope that answers your question. I might have got a little sidetracked, but I hope that answers your question.
Junior? No? Oh, next.
No, okay. So, Junior, just so you know, we're skipping a question. So the next one we wanted to talk about was, what do you think parents worry about when their kids are about to turn 18? So from a youth perspective.
Okay, when I turned 18, my parents were so worried that I was going to make the right decisions, but unfortunately, they would think that I would be making bad decisions. So, for example, they were worried that I would sign legal papers without reading them and not understanding what I'm going to be signing.
Oh, that's a good example. Jordan?
I did, my parents were, just, cause it was shoved in front of them at the last minute. They were worried about, reading it all and, I've had this discussion with them. For instance, if I was the opposite gender, they told me it might be a little different if I was the opposite gender because, of what females have to go through, but thank goodness I'm not a female. But but I hope that answers your question.
Oh, go ahead.
What I was worried about was getting in trouble doing something illegal. So something like, yeah, just getting in trouble, honestly. I'm scared about that. So it's kind of something that I was worried about. So, you know,
Yeah, you don't seem like a troublemaker.
Yeah,
No, I think this, so I'll just say for me and my husband, William does, his dad and his uncles and all the people. The William, as we talk about, it's weird to talk about you when you're right here. So he's very social. William likes lots of people. He likes to also like people, want people to be happy. So all of us who raise, that you have a kid, that's their personality. It's very concerning that someone's going to take advantage of that, right? In different ways, big ways or little ways. And it was true that as William moved from, or I'd say right after middle school was, I mean, it's, we don't want to talk about, but that's when we saw that, right? People who might take advantage of that, or not. And there were, those were the things, like I knew there were moments, there were times of getting the call from the vice principal at the high school of saying, William has an email that said he's going to buy jewel pods for somebody. That wasn't because William knew what jewel pods were or that he was using them. It was because somebody knew William had $20, right? So they were emailing about it, which is the irony to me because the school scans the emails, right? But there were things in that space where I knew we might be walking down some different paths, right? So I was afraid. And then I'm going to tell you, sweet old Ashley Mathy told me to get over it. One day. And the other thing that was true, and I think I just said to Jordan's parents, like Jordan, or meeting people that have disabilities, people that are adults. William had a mentor. I'm just gonna push this all the time. There's a lovely guy named Mike Hipple who people know. Mike and William had a relationship through email that was worked into William's IEP starting in 5th grade. And it was, they wanted him to work, work on your language skills and your reading. And they always had a different way to do it. And we looked at the school and said, well, he also has his friend. He likes to email. So they would email back and forth, right? And that helped William have somebody to say, similar to what Jordan is saying about Ramsey, right? Like, you got to build those networks when you can. My takeaway there is find an older mentor for a kid or for someone else that's lived and walked in their shoes more than you ever will, so they can talk to them about stuff.
if I can mention.
And it makes you feel less freaked out.
Like I said earlier, everybody makes mistakes. So please don't be afraid to try out supported decision making, because if you try guardianship, it's really hard to reverse it. And you can always try supported decision making or other alternatives first before you try this, because it's just really hard to reverse it. So that's all I had to say.
Good.
So this has kind of come up a few times now, but do people tend to talk to you or your parents, like when you go places? Junior, you had a great answer for this.
Thanks. Oh, yeah. Okay, so both of my parents attended guardianship and supported decision-making workshops to have a better understanding about both options. So far, I've had like a good experience with doctor's appointments. The doctors ask questions and they let me answer them. I choose my mom to be there in case she needs me to be there for any questions or forms to sign.
We can't work on papers.
I think I
Here we go.
answered this one already.
Yeah, you did. Okay. And then we talked about the dentist, so.
We already talked about the dentist. You guys got the dentist.
So did you talk to your teachers? Did your teachers talk to you about guardianship or supported decision making? Because again, we talked about it's still relatively new. Jordan, do you?
Okay, so it was brought up briefly in my IEP meeting, my junior year, I think it was. And then the next time I remember hearing about it, it was the day I turned 18. I actually had a doctor's appointment because my dad set it up that way so he could remember. And they called the house because that was the year of 2020, and they said, are you willing to have us talk to your parents, because we didn't know anything of it. And then I said, yes, of course. And so they had me sign some things, and then it was all good until the conference, and I forgot about it at the time. And then the conference came, and then that's when everything got rolling again.
Okay.
Awesome.
Rolling. I thought you said got wrong again. And I was like, wait a minute. No, got rolling again. So for Will and I and our family, our school did not talk to us about supported decision making. They sent us a letter that said he's going to be 18 over the next school year. You better get guardianship this summer. And as you might imagine, I'm that parent where it's a fine line. I always say between the parent people run from and the ones they find helpful. I try to be the one they found helpful. So we brought supported decision making to them and said, no, we're not doing that. That's not going to happen. And in that space, you signed reused releases with school after William turned 18 and had those filled out for anybody he wanted at an IEP meeting. And that was another thing I think, just as we talk about, this is something that grows over time. I believe people need to be present as early as possible in any meeting that talks about them, right? And whether they have the ability to use their voice physically or they are, people need to be in the room. When William was younger, he was going to be over there, right? He doesn't want to sit at the table with all of us for an hour and a half listening to his mom rant. But as he got older and things changed, then he, more at the table, making a plan and working those things out. So what I just want, takeaway here for me is I want you feel safe. It's okay to say, hey, wait, that's not how we want to do that, right? And often in the state of things we're at, right, there aren't ample people staffing an IEP meeting or supporting a special education department, or people are short staffed. They're going to wait for you to ask because they don't always have the bandwidth to say, oh, I heard about this new thing, right? So if you never bring it up, they're just going to fill the form out the way it is. They're going to send us a letter is what they did. So don't be afraid to push back and say, I don't want the letter. I know about this other thing and I'd like to try to use that and learn more about it, because that will help not only your family, but other kids and other people in your school.
All right. Junior, how about you?
Okay. My teachers in high school never mentioned it about guardianship or SDM, which is short supported decision making for short. The school talked about how to make my own decisions. My mom was the one who brought the conversation to them about guardianship and SDM. The school found more resources to help us decide.
Okay, so we're gonna skip another question, Junior, but let's start with Jordan. Why was supported decision making the right decision for you?
Like I said earlier, I'm always start out with the things that you can make choices, and you can always go more restrictive to you. I like to make my own decisions with my parents and my other network support. It's just important to me to be like everybody else, to put it simply. And
Yes, I like that.
and they don't realize that I can make my own decisions, that I am in a wheelchair and I can just make my own decisions. So that puts it I think it answers that question pretty good.
Yeah, yes, it does. Junior, how about you?
Okay. At the end of the day, there's going to be mistakes in life. but once you fix those mistakes, it's going to be much easier the next time. For some things, my parents and I felt confident about making my own decisions. So we were very comfortable trying SDM, supported decision making for short, first.
Mhm. Thank you. Tell people that, so I'm telling you what to say.
He forgot his story.
Forgot my story already.
I know. Sometimes William, so can you tell people, sometimes I don't want anyone to think I'm giving him words, right? Like that's an interesting good. William sometimes has a hard time remembering the words or finding the words. So we do sort of an interview moment. So that, which his sister, who's I'm gonna point you out in the back of the room, will say, that sounds like a leading question. But it's not. It's just that William have the prompts. So so Jordan said he wants to be treated like everybody else.
Like, I just,
Sing out, Louise.
I want to be treated like everybody else because, I want to feel like, people understand me and, understand who I am. And I want to get treated with respect. I want people to like me, like everybody else in here. Like, you want someone to understand you and not be mad at you or dislike you or anything like that. So it's kind of like, you want to be treated like everybody else. So it's just the nice way of, it's just a nice way. I get it.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that probably would have been my son.
Yeah, like resentment.
Can you say more about that? Like, what does that mean? We would have just done guardianship. How would you have felt?
I would have felt,
You can say it. Mad.
well, yeah, mad. I would have been, yes, I would have been more mad, to be honest.
Yes. So I think when we talked about these questions together, William talked about how when he thought about that idea of us pursuing that strong of a role, right, as his guardian and saying to him in that way of finding incompetence and you can't do the things your sister or other people can do, other friends and things, that there would have been a resentment. He would have been angry and he was very clear about that. That's not who I am. That's not who you've told me I am. That's why are you now changing the way the way I'm being treated? And I think that was a really important part of our process in deciding. I sometimes remind him it's still out there. Just because, but no more than I don't remind my mother, right? I mean, people that are asking me for help, I want to like, okay, you think we do this in all our lives, right? You help people as little as you can in the beginning, and then you add to that if you need to. And that's where we're at right now.
Great. So we only have a couple minutes left. Is there a question from the audience that you've been doing great asking questions all along, which is helpful, I think.
We got a question over here.
You're up.
Oh,
It's more of a statement. You guys are cool.
So are you. It's Jenny that makes us the most cool.
Okay, give them the survey.
well, okay.
The agreement or any of that stuff we might have left at the table, or like we want the burning.
We do have more agreements up here and we have them in Spanish as well. And the last slide, if you pull this up on the website or if you have a hard copy, does have that link to the toolkit. So for the person who asked on Zoom, I do have the direct link to the toolkit on our PowerPoint. So yes, as Jordan said, please fill out the evals. Those are very helpful for the future. This lady in blue will collect them or you can leave them at your table.
I need the microphone.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know which story you're referring to, but my husband and I adopted my brother when he was 9 years old after my parents passed away. And we have always tried to struggle with how to support him. He does have a developmental disability as well as mental health. And I remember his senior year as well, where someone said, aren't you going to get a guardianship for him? And I was flabbergasted because I had no idea what that even entailed. We didn't know anything. So we chose the less restrictive option, but we didn't know really what that was going to entail. And essentially what we ended up doing was supported decision-making before we knew that that was even something that existed, because we wanted him to have his own ability to make decisions and to fail. Sometimes he's made some mistakes like I have in my life, and to know that that was okay. But so that's the short story of it, is like that I truly believe in supported decision making because we've been living it my entire life with my brother. Thanks, everybody.